So Aquaman, guys, how does it place, or how does it live up in the DCEU? Is it the start of a new venture for DCEU out of all the other films that have been heavily criticized? This is my opinion and review on Aquaman, spoiler free. How's it going, Aquaman and ladies? That's a new one, but whatever. This is my Aquaman review. This is spoiler free. I just thought, like, you know, a lot of people haven't seen the film yet, obviously because it's out a little bit later, I think, in America and places like that. But regardless, you know, you might want to see my opinion on the film without me saying a ton of spoilers, so I'm just going to talk about it in general. So Aquaman, Jason Momoa's Aquaman is finally here, and I have to say that, yes, this is the best movie in the DCEU for me, next to Wonder Woman. Beats Justice League by miles. Sorry to Justice League fans, I'm sorry, but that movie ruined the DCEU. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, for lack of a better phrase or word, whatever, for me. It just really did. Justice League that was it for me. You know, obviously it was a few hiccups here and there in the DCEU. I was a fan of Batman vs Superman. Obviously, the cut that came out of it was really made it a lot better. Wonder Woman, fantastic. Need I say any more? But other than that, everyone, it beats Justice League by miles for me as a DC, you know, movie experience. And yeah, maybe on par with Wonder Woman, maybe slightly behind, but you know, it's got a, you know, a slightly more different feel. And I hope that kind of scopes it in the realms of other DCEU movies. So despite the story being about, you know, reclaiming Arthur's birthright and, you know, trying to become the king of Atlantis. Not that, you know, Arthur Curry is necessarily, you know, wanting that at the beginning of the film. You know, it still does have some emotional moments that felt a bit tear-jerking, definitely for me. I'm just triggered like that with tears. Not necessarily belting tears out, crying or anything. Despite saying that, this movie wasn't dark. It was a lot lighter than any other DC film. And that just brings me on to say anyway, in relation to this, just so you can compare it to, like, you know, what you know about the DCU already. We all know it's been memed upon quite a bit. But the person I went to see it with said that it was their favorite DCU film the second that the film ran its credits, you know. And I asked why, but then I interrupted, like, because I already knew the answer. And I said, it's because it's a lot more lighthearted, isn't it? And instantly, the response was yes. So people are clearly enjoying a lot more lighthearted approach to the DCU movies. Now, of course, I'm not going to make that blatant comparison to the Marvel formula. You know what I'm talking about with the Marvel formula, lightheartedness, comedy and everything in their movies. But I am talking about the blatant start of the DCEU with, you know, how it started off completely different, and it has changed course a little bit now. And you know, we've still got films like Shazam to come, which is going to be, I think, another hit in terms of a lot more lighthearted than Aquaman, obviously, from those trailers and the vibe they're going with. But I wouldn't, you know, DCU films from here on out are probably going to follow the Aquaman kind of vibe. And yes, I know Jason Momoa and the Aquaman they're bringing here, you know, you could say, oh yeah, but Aquaman was always going to be like that. They could have turned it into darkness, but they decided to embrace the Jason Momoa Aquaman side of it and throw a lot more lightheartedness into it, and that works. It just does what they did before didn't, even though I enjoyed Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman and everything like that. So the first part of the movie, guys, started off like a little bit slow compared to like the rest of the movie, but that's absolutely fine in a way because, you know, it sets up Arthur's past. It talks about the history and situation surrounding his mother, who was the queen, and everything like that. So like, this was a given, and this is from what I've seen as well, one of the areas that is getting poked at. But at the same time, the film does find its footing shortly afterwards, and this doesn't take away from the overall Aquaman experience. And to be honest, some people might really enjoy that first part of the film, and I was one of those people, but I do agree, compared to the rest of the film, you could argue that this dragged it behind a little bit at the very beginning. But you know, this doesn't really take anything off the experience, as I said. And my whole like favorite part of the film was, I guess, the middle-ish to third act onwards. It was just, wow, just wait till you get that part of the film. So as for the cast of the movie, I think that it was well casted. Obviously, I want to talk about Jason Momoa. He freaking killed it as Aquaman. Now, I've been following Jason Momoa since, you know, he was in Stargate Atlantis. Obviously, I didn't watch that when it actually aired, but I watched it a long time ago. And yes, ironically enough, it's named Atlantis as well. I just had to point that out, I'm sorry. But, you know, I followed him with more or less one eye from then. Of course, I was somewhat excited for this film, but I have to admit, by all means, I was definitely not hyped. I just really wasn't. Now this comes back to what I very briefly touched upon earlier with how I said that the DCU kind of got killed for me a bit, whether you've seen me talk about it in live streams or anything like that in previous videos. I'm just saying, with all the headache, will Superman, will Batman, will Ben Affleck, blah blah blah, some of the movies, Justice League especially, I was just desensitized is the perfect word from anything else to do with that universe. I wanted movies like Aquaman and future movies to pleasantly surprise me. I was not going to get involved in it heavily. I was just like, okay, when Aquaman comes out, if I like it, if my world gets rocked, I will say it. But I do not want to be like, oh, I really hope this movie's good. I just want to be pleasantly surprised. But as you can probably tell from what I'm saying so far, I thought this movie was really great. And honestly, I don't think I could picture anyone else playing Aquaman other than Jason Momoa. And I don't even want to. Sure, you can list other people or other actors who play the role, but you just don't want to. Jason Momoa is Aquaman. Now, I have also heard the criticisms, I guess, of people saying that Jason Momoa often plays any character and bleeds through his own personality into a lot of his roles. And you can definitely see that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because his acting was very good in this film. You know, sure, his own personality shines through, but Arthur Curry does bounce off Jason Momoa, like the person that is Jason Momoa himself, and he blends them into one. Sometimes, yes, that is a bad thing in roles, but Jason Momoa makes it his own, and that is great. And it suits this character, Aquaman, in the DCU perfectly. Now, of course, Amber Heard as Mira was great. I really enjoyed her performance. I really liked her character. Patrick Wilson was a convincing antagonist with, you know, the plot, but I don't want to get too deep into that, but it's kind of obvious. Now, Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I believe that's how you say his name, as Black Manta was very good. Now, this brings me on to the suit and everyone else's suit. Absolutely brilliant. Just backtracking 2 seconds, Aquaman's suit, really cool. When you see that on screen for the first time, it's like, oh wow. And I'm sure you guys may have heard by now, apparently it was looking really bad at the beginning, and even Jason Momoa was getting very worried about it. But all costume and design in this movie was great, and I'll get onto visual effects in a second. But a Black Manta suit, it just proves that something that you would think is absurd looking in real life, or if you brought it to a movie, you know, would be bad, but it was really good. But what I will say about Black Manta in this film, really cool character, like, you know, the plot made sense and everything. But if they want to make a sequel just about him, I can't imagine, with what you see in this film with him holding up his own movie. Even maybe the plot would have to be mind-blowingly great, but I don't know if any of you who have seen it and know what I'm talking about here is the character and the way it's given off in this film with him. I just feel like if they make the next film just about him and Aquaman, I can't imagine it. Now, I can imagine him as a side character along with a few other villains or something like that. That would be perfect, but I can't imagine this guy holding up his whole story for another plot of, let's say, revenge for in the next film or whatever have you. You know, insert story ideas here. Now, in Aquaman, I laughed quite a few times, but out of all the other reviews, and I honestly don't tend to read article reviews or anything like that from websites, or, you know, oh, Aquaman was bad or whatever to influence my decision. But one common criticism I have heard is that the comedy does fall flat a couple of times or so in this film, and I do have to agree with that. Now, my screening, when I saw this, I laughed myself multiple times. The audience did. That was a great feeling. But there were a couple of jokes in the film, and it made me think of that criticism as soon as I saw it and saw this on screen. Like, what other people were saying is that whole room was silent, all the audio was cut off in the film apart from the punchline, I don't know, let's say from Jason Momoa, and nobody laughed. And it was obviously meant to be that punchline joke in the film where everyone was meant to laugh, like we've laughed several other times in the movie. But it didn't happen. And I just thought, oh, so this is what those reviews meant, like, or whatever, wherever I heard that, because it's true. It is true. It doesn't destroy the film or take away from it. All it made me feel like is that they really thought that was funny. Like, if I was editing this film, I would have cut that out. I just really would. I can't name a specific example. There were 2 or 3 times where it just felt a bit awkward, and you feel like saying, guys, that wasn't funny. Now, Aquaman is a very cinematically stunning movie. It just is. Like, I don't care what anyone else says or criticizing CGI or whatever like that. There are beyond multiple checkpoints in the movie where I just wanted to close my eyes and do a snapshot, like a camera click or a photo or something, that you would think, oh, I want that as a poster, or I want that as my desktop wallpaper background or something like that. Because this movie shines for really awe-striking moments just like that. Seriously, such comic book like frames of Aquaman with the trident, and they line up the lighting perfectly. Just wait till you see this movie, you'll know exactly what I'm on about. But that brings me on to the effects for this movie, and as I said, some people are complaining about the CGI, but all I have to say about that is that although not every CGI shot or creation was, you know, perfect, because that would be, you know, I just don't know if that's realistic, but you will see my point in a second. This whole film is extremely ambitious with it being an Aquaman movie. And what do I mean by that? I mean James Wan has pulled off a movie where we have literally people conversing underwater, like whole brilliant fight scenes underwater. And I'm not sure if you know this, but you probably do, just because of, you know, CGI, and it's not like they're actually talking underwater. But those underwater shots were all like visual effects, like they were in harnesses floating there, they had their hair like pulled back, that wasn't their hair actually floating there. And the fact that James Wan like pulled this all off, Aquaman movie being Atlantis, all underwater, well, most of it underwater, underwater fights, everything like that. Bottom line, guys, my point being, for a film that is dripping with visual effects, it was done very, very well. You know, you would think, imagine if you were given the responsibility of this movie, and you think, okay, this is Atlantis, this is Aquaman, this is all kind of like underwater, mainly underwater, blah, blah, blah. Make that come to life, I would be bricking it. Not even if I had the rigs, you know, to set up the right crew, the right cast, to make this happen, I would be like, can I really pull this off? Can they really pull this off? But he did. He did. Overall, everyone, Aquaman makes me feel, as a DC fan, that the future is bright for the DCEU if they keep up with films of quality just like this. And I feel like that is going to happen. We know Wonder Woman was great. I feel like Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be good. I think Shazam is going to bring a whole new level. And with the freshness of Aquaman being a bit more lighthearted, Shazam is just going to bring out even more kind of vibes from people who enjoyed this movie. Now, I'm not saying, oh, every movie in the DCU now has to be lighthearted because that is now what's working for them. I just feel like they needed to change, and they have done. They've taken a lot on board from the first few films. As I said, yes, sure, Aquaman was probably going to be a light-hearted-ish film anyway, but no, they could have made it dark. They could have made it like brooding, like the previous DCU films. But I can really see a vision ahead for this cinematic universe for the first time in a long time. I really, really can. And that is honestly, as I said, coming from someone who was desensitized from this whole freaking universe, despite me preferring DC characters and that universe anyway over Marvel. Not saying I'm a fanboy of it. I love Marvel, but I'm just saying I was a guy who was such a big fan of this and was completely killed. Now I've had my faith pretty much borderline restored, still apprehensive, of course, you never know. I mean, of course, we're still gonna get serious films, I bet, like, you know, Matt Reeves' Batman movies. If they're like Aquaman, I would be, you know, doing this. I'd be like, I don't know, I feel like you could have got away with being quite dark with that. But still, the future is still gonna be serious, like I said, with Aquaman movies, but a lot more lighthearted, serious moments still, but make it more like this, and you will be successful. DC, go see this movie, guys. It is great. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you doing? Go see it. If you're thinking about saving money, or should I really go see this, or should I see something else? Go see this. Go see this. If you haven't seen it yet, other than that, it might not be out in the country, but when it is out, go see it. Also, other than this, just so happy for Jason Momoa. He's such an awesome guy. He really is, I feel like, one with the fans. He treats his job like it is a dream come true. And I don't know, if you know a bit about him anyway, I'm just so happy for him that this is a success and it's doing so well. He is ecstatic about playing the character, and it just makes me feel like it's in good hands for the future. Not only for Jason Momoa playing that role, but DC finally feel like they have found their gear to drive in the car. But other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. As I said, no spoilers whatsoever. It's more of like a vibe and feels about it. I hope this kind of gave you faith for somebody who may have felt like me about the cinematic universe of DC beforehand. But go see it, trust me, and you'll feel slightly more optimistic about the future. And yeah, I will be seeing this film again. I will literally be seeing this a second time with more friends. But anyway, guys, subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this Aquaman review. Let me know if you want to see a spoiler review. I don't usually do them, but if there is enough demand, I will get into the nitty-gritty details of scenes and what I found most cool in this scene and how I thought that scene probably shouldn't have happened, or this character shouldn't have done that. But other than that, guys, as always, links are in the description down below, social media, other places to support me as well. But thank you so much for watching Aquaman and Aqualadies, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.